Hi guys, so today's video is going to be a list of some standalone books that I want to read in 2020. Before I give my list, definitely let me know some standalones that you've been meaning to get to. I feel like standalones are pretty rare in fantasy, which is a lot of times what I like to read, but they do seem to be pretty common in historical fiction, which I love, but I just don't read as much as I'd like. So some of the books on my list are going to be historical fiction and some are going to be fantasy, but I'd love to know which ones you guys want to read. Might give me some more ideas of things that I want to get to. I have 10 books that I'm going to mention. None of them are going to be in any particular order. I'm just going to jump right into it with the Queens of Innisleer. When I see this book, it's always sold in the adult science fiction and fantasy section, but it is a Shakespeare story retelling. And recently my friend Jade from Bedtime Bookworm, she does the best seasonal anticipated releases videos, and she mentioned that this particular author is going to be coming out with another Shakespeare story retelling, and she was mentioning how she's never read Queens of Innisleer and she'd like to read that one first. And I've had that one for a while. It happens to be one of the books that my precious dog Luna destroyed the spine of, but I think the pages are still intact enough for me to read it, and I've been wanting to read it for a while. I know Jade, she's planning on reading it sometime at the beginning of the year, so I'm hoping to do a buddy read with her. Speaking of Jade, one of her favorite books from this last year that also happens to be a book I've seen a lot of people really enjoy would be Priory of the Orange Tree. This is a fantasy standalone that is really fat, and the only things that I've really seen that are somewhat negative about this book is that some people feel that this actually could have been more than a standalone. A lot of times there are series that people say, oh, it feels drawn out, I wish they had condensed it. And this is one that I've seen some people say, I think they could have elaborated on it, maybe made it a duology or a trilogy. But either way, I've heard some really good things about it. There are dragons. I like dragons. And this particular author, Samantha Shannon, is one who I've wanted to check out for a while, but she has another series that there's a few books in that series. And so if I can start off with a standalone, that'd be a really good indication of what her writing style's like. I also asked some of my patrons recently from Patreon some of their favorite books from this year, and two of them happened to have mentioned Priory of the Orange Tree. So I want to get to it, one, because they said it was good, and also I'd love to read some books that my patrons have enjoyed. Sticking with adult fantasy, I really want to get to Uprooted by Naomi Novik. Naomi Novik in general is an author that I want to read so much more of. I read the first book in her Temeraire series, and it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. There were some moments in that story. It's about this man who joins what is an alternate history aerial corps. So it's like the Air Force, except for with dragons, and it's Napoleonic era, which is really bizarre, but it was so fun, and the dragon in that was adorable, and I've been meaning to read more Temeraire, but also I've heard that Uprooted is fantastic. There does seem to be a bit of controversy with it, a little bit of, oh, there might be something problematic in the story, but I still see a lot of people that say it's really good, and I like to find out those things for myself. But otherwise, I've been wanting to read this for so long. Next book is a historical fiction that I've had for a while. I have heard nothing but good things for this, and that would be All the Light We Cannot See. One of the perspectives is that of a girl who is blind. It takes place during a world war, and it's an award-winning book. It's considered critically acclaimed. It's supposed to be absolutely fantastic, and one of my private violin students who is an adult, I remember her mentioning that she'd read it, and then she was asking me, because she knows I love to read, if I'd read it, and I hadn't, and I really want to. I want it to be kind of a goal of mine to read a little more historical fiction this next year, because I almost always end up loving historical fiction, and this one seems like a pretty good one to try. I am always a little confused because The Night Circus sounds very whimsical, but I always see it sold in the fiction section, so I don't really know what it's considered, but it sounds interesting. I've heard it's very beautiful, and the writing style I've heard is very pretty, so I'm definitely really curious about it. The only thing that I've found to be kind of negative when people talk about this book is some people seem to think it's kind of boring, but I still think it sounds good. The next book on this list would be Dry by Neal Shusterman. Neal Shusterman is an author that ever since I read the Arc of the Scythe trilogy, I've been very curious about other things that are associated with Neal Shusterman. So I really want to get to this one. It's about if California runs out of water from what I understand, and the reviews I've seen have talked about how they could not stop drinking water while reading that book because they just felt so thirsty. And I feel like if you can capture that well, the feeling of whatever is going on in the book, that already sounds great. I've been wanting to read more stories that are a little bit outside of fantasy, and I really enjoyed Scythe quite a bit. So I'm hoping that I'll really like Dry. I tried to see if it's supposed to be a series, and I couldn't find anything that said there are sequels, but I do want to add that in there just because if it is not actually a standalone, then I apologize. Getting back to historical fiction, I have wanted to read Between Shades of Grey for a very long time. This is a story that is, once again, I've heard people say that it's really beautiful and that it's really tragic, which is usually what I like in my historical fiction. Next up, we have another Naomi Novik book, and this would be Spinning Silver. It is, once again, kind of like Uprooted, where I believe the problematic stuff that people discuss is mostly in reference to Uprooted, but I think there might be some when talking about Spinning Silver also. I think it's about the romances in the stories, but both are retellings, and I always have so much fun with retellings, and these are retellings of stories that I'm not really that familiar with, and like I said before, I've been wanting to read not only these, but more Naomi Novik in general, and I feel like standalones are such an easy way to do that because it's just one and done. Also, I know this doesn't matter, and I know it's shallow, but these have such pretty covers, and normally I am that snob that's like, the UK covers are always better, but both the US and the UK editions of these books are really pretty. I know that doesn't have to do at all with the plot of the books or the quality or anything like that, but you know what, cover artists work hard, and whoever the cover artists were for these books, they did a really good job. The next book on this list is actually the only book that is a reread, and that would be The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak. This is one of those stories that I read and then I didn't review, and I remember really enjoying it, but I've kind of forgotten some of it, and I don't know how that happened. I have a pretty good memory, and I almost always remember stuff really vividly, but I don't remember this one very well, and I can't figure out why. I don't know if my brain just blocked it out or if it's because I didn't do a review, so I never really formed my thoughts about the story as a whole, and so it didn't stick with me the way some other things do. But I remember really enjoying it, and I know lots of people really love this book. Kind of bothers me that I have forgotten so much about it. I think I'm gonna make, this is really mean. My mom hates sad books, but I really want to buddy read something with her and maybe my sister also this next year. And I'm thinking about picking this one, which I feel like is I feel like this is a really mean book to pick for somebody that doesn't like sad books. But I also feel like my mom she'd find it very moving. I think my mom would like it. I kind of just want to buddy read something with my mom. If you know of any really happy, fun standalones, or if you know of any cozy mystery standalones, let me know. My mom likes the cozy mysteries like Harlan Coben. I've read one of the books that she enjoyed by Harlan Coben. She really likes that author, and that's kind of what she has a Harlan Coben kick right now. So if you guys have any suggestions, if I'm going to make my mom potentially read The Book Thief, I feel like I need to find something that is more of her ballpark. Otherwise, I'm just a jerk. Last on this list would be another book that is historical fiction, and that would be Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys, who I think is the same person who wrote the other one. Is it the same person? Yes, I just looked it up. It is the same author. I was pretty sure it was, but for some reason when I was talking about Between Shades of Grey, I just had a little brain hiccup and thought, no, that's the other book that's written by her, not this one. But yeah, it's the same person. So I've heard good things about both these books, and it also makes sense that people have said similar things about these, so I think in my brain I just thought they were the same thing. But I'm really excited because both of these books I've heard are gorgeous and sad and really emotional. I have yet to find a book that has made me cry. I've almost cried with a few books, and I'm wondering if any of these are going to do the trick. We'll see, but I've heard this one is a tearjerker. Let me know what books you've read that have made you cry. It's okay. side tangent for a second. I cry about stupid stuff. Like, there's stuff everybody's like, I'm not crying, you're crying. Like when soldiers come home to their dogs. That's, oh my gosh. Nobody, if you can resist that, good for you, I guess. But I don't know what it is about books. I have yet to find a book that makes me cry, and I feel like there's something missing in here. I don't know. Give me some suggestions. Try to make Elle cry. Make that a goal in your book suggestions. That's it though for some standalones that I'm wanting to read in 2020. Like I said at the beginning, let me know which ones you're wanting to get to. If you're wanting to get to any of the same ones, especially Queens of Innis Lear, let me know, because it'd be really cool if we could basically read them around the same time. And I say especially Queens of Innis Lear since Jade's also planning on reading that one. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.